My background primarily is communications. So I started off my career in television production, and so I managed commercial campaigns. So from a functional level, the title of what I'm talking to you about today, I've got a really good base knowledge of storytelling, right? And my personal view is that storytelling, in many ways, not necessarily worrying too much about the platform, but storytelling is fairly straightforward. In my opinion, it's about content being king, okay? And respecting your reader. That's essentially what it is, because we all have time commitments on a regular basis. Think about how much time you spend on the computer on a daily basis and how much you're forced to read through a computer screen, right? If I'm going to tell you a story or if I'm going to convey information, that needs to be at the top of my mind, being respectful of your time. I don't want to lose you for my own personal wants and needs, but I also want to respect you because I want you to leave with a good feeling about whatever it is that I'm talking about or the organization that I'm speaking on behalf of, okay? All right, so that's our discussion point for me, for you guys today. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the maximized message, okay? I'm going to break this down into three different areas for you, and we'll see that in just one second. But I want to start off with a couple of base rules, right? The first one is we take action on our emotions and personal experiences. You've been on this planet all of your life, correct? You have been shaping your lens of understanding every single day, correct? You have your own view, you have your own lens. So when we're speaking to people, whether we're talking storytelling on the web, we're asking for action, the ideal goal is to speak their language, to speak something that makes sense to them through their lens. And this is something that we often take for granted in some regards because we see things as we see things. We're used to being ourselves on a regular basis. We don't always have to pull ourselves out of ourselves and say, hey, is my message really suited for them? Okay? So this is sort of what I'm talking about here. Here's the second part of the nuts and bolts. We want to convert basic consumption of your message into action. You must create a space for feeling and emotion within your reader, okay? And if you notice how I position this sentence, I say create a space, right? So we can make something, we can also remove things. So when I say create a space, I'm saying if we can, just for a second, sort of get rid of whatever that person is thinking about for the moment, allow them to really connect and engage with whatever information or whatever story you're telling them. We want to create a space inside the reader that is reserved specifically for you and your message, okay? That's the overall goal here. So we break this down into three buckets. This is how I break it down for you. Purpose and impact, time and space, and be your audience. And so we're going to talk about some of those things today real quick, okay? And I did not get a time on myself, so if somebody hears me going over, I'm usually pretty good about it, but just, throw something really heavy at me. I respond well with that. Just make sure you connect right there. All right. So this first bucket, purpose and impact. So this is the guiding light right here. Help your audience envision and feel their positive impact. So what's another word for that sentence? What might be one word that we could use to describe that sentence for the viewer? It's a popular word today. Engaged. Engaged is one. Another E word, empower, right? That's the whole basis of the platform. You get to choose where your money goes. You're the one that's in control. You can make a difference. Maximize on that, okay? The next point is inform and entertain. So we can build things, right? We can actually make things. We can also deconstruct things or stop things from happening. Here's another way to reframe building or creating, this constant notion that we have to build or create. We can deactivate, can't we? We can put the brakes on something or not give something enough energy to actually take place. So deactivate your conscious reader and activate the emotional human. How often do we forget the human being behind our writing, right? Maybe for your purposes, if it's easier for you to write or if it's easier for your comm person to write, think about the actual person that they're writing to. Maybe have a picture of one of your donors or one of your constituencies up. something to humanize them. So overall, your goal is to drive action, right? So we want to generate an emotional response, and all we have to do is get to that credit card field, right? To the point where we start entering credit card information. So give yourself that finish line if you want, to the point where we're entering credit card information, buddy, I just need you to hit submit. Just give me the money, please, so I can do this really good thing, okay? So that's your sort of finish line, if you will. And then before you publish, I want you to ask yourself, is my piece capable of the bullet point before that? But I mean, really, like, honestly, not 4 o'clock's coming, I got this other thing I got to do. I'm just going to hit send on it real quick and get this thing published and out there so that it can start fishing for me, right? I challenge you on that. If it's not great, don't go for it. Just wait, retool it. Who knows what an additional 8 hours might render you, right? You may come in the next day after you struggled with something. I did this in grad school every single day when I earned my master's degree. I hated it, and then the next morning I was like, oh, okay, well, I see where you left off, Jace. I can fix that, okay? Okay, now we're on to the second bucket, all right? Time and space. Some functional stuff. So when I talk about change for people, whether I'm doing corporate training for really large groups or whether I'm doing small groups like this, I'm always looking for 2 things to happen. I'm looking to educate, 1, and 2, I'm looking for the person that I'm speaking with that hopefully when they get to that moment where they actually have to do something different, you guys need to make the change. Okay, so it's basically cognitive behavioral training is essentially what it is. So we're looking for a change, right? So we want you to think and write in active voice, okay? This is just my own personal kind of thing. I don't personally like passive voice too much. I would rather see something written with strength and written in active voice. If you're going to say something, don't be wishy-washy about it. In passive says that to me. Passive says, oh, I'm not too sure. Be sure. You're asking for somebody's money. You want to do something good. Be sure. Here's the other thing. Because I'm a TV person, right, because I'm a multimedia person, I hear things in conversation and speaking tone, right? There's a difference. So when you write, maybe try and shift it up a little bit. When your comm person writes, try and think of asking them to compose for the spoken word. Want to give it a shot? Read it out loud. Read what you just wrote out loud, word for word. Don't cheat, word for word. Read it out loud and see what happens. It's hard sometimes to write in a conversational tone. If you think about writing for the spoken word, right, something that's a little bit more lazy and maybe not as formal as the written word, you can get there. One of the big benefits is you can reduce the length of your content. And if you look at this PowerPoint and the information, you guys can have this to walk away with, but you'll see sprinkled throughout, I'm always looking for ways that I can just trim a little bit of ounceage from whatever it is that we write, okay? Always looking for nice and tight. Use white space. So when I was researching on power2give, I saw a lot of block text. And that's not just for Charlotte, that's for everybody. I'd prefer to see things in 1 to 3 short sentences per paragraph and use that white space that you have available, okay? Again, one of the other things it's helpful for the reader, but the other thing that's going to happen is it's going to force you to write faster, or write more succinctly, I should say, okay? Bullet points. Hey, bullet points. Remember those? Use them. They're fun. You don't have to write a whole bunch of extra stuff. You can just drop a big dot right there and then finish off with some half-started sentence. Okay? Time and space. Third bucket. This is my favorite. I love this. Redundancies. There is no better way to tell your reader, I have not thought about you and your busy day, because I'm going to tell you 5 different things, 5 different ways, and I'm going to ask that you read it before you actually get to any helpful information so that you can give me some money so that I can do good. Okay? Here's some examples. If you mention your event date or organization age once, great. Don't tell me about it again. I don't need to know that you've been around for 18 years. Number 2 is pretty self-explanatory, right? Don't overstate it. Make your point, get in, get out, be done. And my favorite, the rhetorical mess, AKA the Captain Obvious, is absolutely my favorite one. We need your help, or how can you help? Well, I'm sitting there. I'm reading it. You're there. I'm there. We both know that you need my help. So let's skip that. That's a whole additional sentence that we could use to say something impactful rather than fill space, correct? Yeah? Okay. So here's one of my favorite ones. Copy edit, then copy edit again, then copy edit again. Because the worst thing that you could ask for is to end up with Tom Hanks from Castaway in terms of your writing. So you've got a big piece of block writing, your viewer's sitting there in front of it, and that's exactly what it looks like. It looks like this terribly painful, hairy mess, right? Tom Hanks from Castaway. So once you've copy edited, copy edit some more. Then rinse yourself off and repeat that process until you have something that looks like this Tom Hanks, which is cut until there's nothing left to cut, okay? And I will say, I know that this is sometimes a remedial point for a lot of folks, but I'll say it and say it and say it again. Constantly look to tighten up your writing. Constantly look to tighten up your story. Use every single sentence. Don't waste a single word. Don't waste a single piece of space. So there's a big difference there between that Tom Hanks and this Tom Hanks, right? Something that's clean, succinct, to the point, and something that you got to wade through to figure out what the meaning is behind it, okay? Here's one of my favorite small little tools that can help you tremendously. Most people think when they copy edit that the only way to do it is to cut words, right? If you've written something, okay, look for the high value word, right? It's a military term, right? The high value target. That high value target might be a word that is 8 syllables long. Could you substitute that word for maybe a 3-syllable word? You probably could. And when you do, you will notice that your conversationally written piece starts to flow much more smoothly. And you have far less content on the screen. You have respected your viewer. You've gotten to your point much more clearly and much more quickly, which helps you get to what point? Hitting submit on the credit card button, right? Right? Okay? So look for those high-value words that have a lot of syllables in them and replace them with low-count syllable words. And the highest level of all here, and this is our third bucket. How am I doing on time, Laura? Good? Doing good? Okay. So this is our third bucket. We talked about it in the very beginning, right? Speak to your audience's needs and wants in their voice. We got a lot of women in the room, right? How many like spouses or partners of the male flavor have said to y'all, guess what? I got this really great Xbox game that for us for Valentine's Day, so we can spend a lot of extra time together. No, not so much, right? That's not how Valentine's Day works, is it? Ladies, y'all know this. I'm being very stereotypical here, but we all know this, right? You're purchasing for the other person. You're not purchasing for your wants. And this is oftentimes the very basic sticking point that we find that hinders true storytelling. It's the greats that have been able to write or communicate in a way that truly activates the human inside of us. It's an act of giving, really, is what it is. It's not an act of taking, it's an act of giving, right? So that's what we're looking for. So think about it in their voice. How do I start this sentence? If you must publish more to satisfy your own needs, right? I just said it. If you feel like it takes more to say whatever it is that you say, I challenge you. I say no. I say that's a crutch. But if you want to do that, You want to satisfy your own needs and publish a whole bunch more because that's what you're used to and that's what feels comfortable to you. Hyperlink it, please. Kick out to somewhere else for more detailed information. Please don't try and stick the viewer with a whole bunch of block information. Your own needs, right? Okay. So here's an idea. Can we think creatively inside the box? So the platform was designed the way it's designed, right? Could we start our narrative, just as an idea here, just thinking out loud, could we start our narrative in the form of, in the About This project, where you start writing, and then finish that narrative in a pictograph or a video? See what I'm saying? In other words, use the platform in seemingly unintended ways. What's the deal with creativity? Lots of people have said there are no new ideas. They're simply the blending of old ones, right? It's exactly the same thing here. So use the platform in ways that maybe it wasn't necessarily intended to be used, okay? So there's a potential idea that could be something kind of creative, right? A multi-medium format. Here's my favorite one. And I think that in our current state of society today, I don't think that we do this enough. But ask for help. Whether it's you that's writing it or someone else in your department that's writing whatever it is that you're trying to convey or the story that you're trying to convey, ask for help. We're all professionals here, right? We all have our own network, correct? What's a flattering thing to say to someone that you've worked with before in the past or that you currently work with? Hey, listen, I got this thing, I got this potential that I'm doing, a $10,000 project to raise money to help out, and I'm kind of stuck on developing a creative story. Will you help me for a second? Pretty nice thing to bestow on someone else, right? To ask for their input, and you'll be shocked on how many people will help you. So ask for help. And if you can, develop that go-to collaborative. And I've talked about this in other classes. Some people here have seen me speak before. But there's a notion of co-opetition, right? Where we compete, but we sometimes partner together, okay? If you're trying to do something good, I don't see that there's really too much of a problem for asking for help, even if it's maybe a little close to home. If you do it professionally, right? Okay? So if you get the opportunity, start creating a collaborative of outside influencers that you can use and rely on and ask for help.